Welcome to a world filled with challenges, temptations, and a barrage of distractions. In the midst of chaos, where misinformation abounds, we're here to be your beacon of inspiration. Welcome to Optimum Ideation Podcast, where we dive deep into the teachings of great leaders to illuminate the path to a better society. In a quest for the best of human ideation, we're on a relentless pursuit to unearth the most profound insights that can elevate humanity. At Optimum Ideation, our mission is clear: to share invaluable knowledge with the future leaders of the world, empowering them to navigate the complexities of an unjust world. Sometimes all we need is a spark of inspiration or a fresh perspective to shift our focus. Join us as we delve into the profound reasons behind human behavior, offering tricks to save time, hacks to optimize your operating system, and unveiling captivating discoveries from the greatest thought leaders of our time. Optimum Ideation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the heart of human potential. Get ready for a roller coaster ride of inspiration, insight, and innovation. Human's best ideation awaits you at Optimum Ideation, where brilliance knows no bounds. The best of human ideation. All right. Welcome back to Optimum Ideation Podcast. We have an awesome guest today. Welcome, Leanne. We're so glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
We touched base the other day, and I dug into a little bit about what you guys have going on, and I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think you're a wealth of information, and I think you've got a great story to share.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully.
yeah, well, you do. It's just whenever you're founding a business and you've been through all the trials and tribulations, it's very inspiring for others who may be just starting in their journey, or maybe they have already started their journey, and maybe they need a little hand holding or someone to help them out. And I think that you're a great support service for that. So glad to have you today.
Yeah.
Our first question, which is usually the longest question, is what is your personal story, your career path, and how did you get to here?
So, first and foremost, the biggest part, of course, of my background is that I'm from the Philippines. I'm in the second biggest city, which is Cebu City. However, I didn't start from here. I started from this really, literally small town that you can get around it in like 30 minutes, probably, and in another island, basically away from here. And I started out with my journey with my career. Actually, at 15 years old, I stumbled upon working as a freelancer very, very early. Before it was even thing, before PayPal was even in the Philippines, I found a way to get the clients to send me money. And that was when I was 15 years old. And then when I was 18, I was starting to ramp up. At that time in the Philippines, when you're 19 or 20, that's when you graduate college, because we started college. I started college at 15 for myself. So around that time, I was 18. It's like, oh, okay, I'm now legal. I'm like, I'm gonna do XYZ. I don't have to like hide anymore that I'm a freelancer. 15 years old. I can now actually say what my actual age is. And in our town, because we're facing the Pacific Ocean, we had this really big Category 5 typhoon called Typhoon Haiyan, international name, that actually filled up our first floor of our house. And I was still in that first floor as the water was filling up. And I am the eldest of four. Like, I made sure all my siblings were safe. I made sure my grandmother and my aunt was safe up upstairs. But I out to this day, it's been now 10 years. I still remember that moment where the water was reaching all the way up to my throat, and it was about to get into my mouth. And I had groceries in one hand, I had our lamp on the other hand, and in my head, I was like, if I survive this, I'm going to make a life that I don't regret dying. I'm going to make a life out of myself. Even though I was like 18 years old, of course, I wouldn't have time to make my life for myself, but I wanted to make that. And at that time, Asian expectations, I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to find a job in the US. I was going to bring home the bacon for my family. And I changed all of that basically. So since that moment, I took in a lot of the intention basically of what that life looked like for me. So I dropped out of college after like 6 months because the PTSD, being in my hometown, was got really really bad. So then I moved here, which was my goal since I was like 8 years old. I wanted to move to the city the first time I came here, and I basically took on any job that could take me. I was lucky enough to get a job as a book editor, which is, as a bookworm, was a dream job, to be paid to read books and to correct them as well. And that was all online. The founder of that business actually flew to Cebu to meet all the employees, and then they got to the point where like a year later they were like, hey, we're going to start this new business. Who would like to spearhead and run the publishing company? And 19-year-old me just kind of raised her hand. I'm like, I want to learn business. I really, really want to learn how to do business. So then he trained me for a year. By the time I was 20, I was named CEO for the company. And that kind of set me up for the path to starting my own business. So 3 years later, I was like, okay, I've learned a lot. This has been amazing. I want to start a business from scratch. And he said, you don't have to leave the company. You can just like be part of our, we're calling our business tree, basically. You can be just one of the branches of the tree. And I'm like, that's not the bad idea. So then since then, I've kind of found also a full circle moment of helping other people find jobs online. Because when I was growing up, my dad was working overseas. That was one of the main ways Filipinos could earn really good money, is by working overseas and sending money home, which was the path I was set on. So I wanted to basically full circle moment of teaching other people how to do that as well. So then 2XU just kind of was a no-brainer for me, because I want becoming a virtual assistant was something that could easily be done for people who might not have a lot of experience, but they can transfer those skills to other things. And as well as then I wanted to work with a lot of really good entrepreneurs, which we have, because I still have that curiosity and burning passion to know how other people do their businesses. So I was in my head, I was like, oh, I'm a secret agent spy. I'm trying to figure out like how their businesses work with their virtual assistant. So that's kind of been a lot of full circle moments for me in the last 13 years now that I've been technically working since I was 15. So yeah.
Oh man, that is such an awesome story. Yeah, I understand that PTSD because I was living in Houston when Hurricane Harvey came through, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a nice big home, and it was in an elevated area, and there was this area behind my house that you would not think that these big bayou ditches would fill up, but that filled up. This other area
Mm-hmm.
filled up, and I was literally just watching it, come up, and it's like you're just like looking like, oh my goodness, like this can
This is
one more
changing my
foot,
life
yeah,
right now.
yeah, one
Yeah.
more foot, and and then we're
Mm-hmm.
in your scenario where you were at, so
Yeah.
I applaud you for getting through that, and then not only getting through that, but setting some powerful goals and going to work at them.
Yeah.
Um, what an awesome path! What an awesome focus for you to be in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually built a recruitment and staffing business that I just recently kind of closed the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
But we were helping people in oil and gas get jobs. And I think that there's a huge, huge reward for the recruiters and the
Mm.
people that are building these people up. So I love that your focus is kind of in a similar space where you're helping
Yeah.
others and you're pointing them in the right direction. And, the stories that'll be told about us will live on long after we're gone. And
Fingers crossed.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so, helping hundreds, I mean, it's, and I saw your mission is to help millions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then also to help, tens of thousands in entrepreneurship. So, uh, hats off to you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that focus and that drive that it takes to do that. And so if I can ever support you or be a wing for you, you let me know.
Well, being on this podcast is already that, because then, of course, with your amazing audiences, then it's educating them to hire, and then hopefully continuing that cycle that I've started with 2XU.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, outside of some of what you've already shared, let's discuss some of your most challenging trials and tribulations, like in business, I guess you could say, because we
Hmm.
are stumbling. You're stumbling when you start, and you're just like, "Wow, I didn't know that was going to happen, or that, or this." So let's discuss some of that along your journey here for these past 13 years.
I guess the biggest one I always point to when I get asked this question is the people side of it. Like, it took me a while to learn how to manage people. Like, even though it's like a big part of what I do, I teach people how to do it. But of course, like, it's the anytime that I had a team more than seven, I always noticed that the things started falling apart, because then my
Yeah,
brain wasn't in the structure of like, oh wait, more than seven, then that means someone else has to manage them. It doesn't have to be you anymore. And
yeah,
I made that mistake three times, sadly, in my business, where I had to keep kind of restarting and trying again, and like figuring out what that actually looked like, because of my own kind of internal struggles. Like, mental health wise, of course, I was going through PTSD. I went through deep depression, anxiety, panic disorder. I had all of those like list of things. So it was hard enough for me to get out of my head, and for me to focus on basically what it is that I wanted to do with my business. So within the publishing company that I ran for 3 years, I went through that. I'm like, okay, that's what it could look like. And then within 2XU, since it's my own baby, it was even a bigger impact of like, oh, I need to be really intentional about the people that I have in my business, like not
yeah,
just the people that I work with, but where they want to grow. Like, thinking in that sense of like, my my first assistant that I had with 2XU. She was amazing. She was like doing a lot of different things. She was handling a lot of things for me, but I wasn't intentional of where she can grow, and I was blind enough to see like, oh, she needed like this structure, like, and she sadly has left basically to start her own business, which I was like 100% supportive of. But then
yeah,
with my current assistant, who's been freaking amazing as well, I've been more intentional, like, okay, where do you want to go? Like, do you see yourself doing this? Do you still want to be my EA, or do you want to actually like manage a few things inside of 2XU? So it's that feedback loop and like learning from them, that has been really big for me. And now, of course, I have like managers for the EAs, I have managers for the clients, which was a year, literally, I think a year and a half ago, I did not have any of them.
yeah.
So it's been that back and forth of learning of what that could look like for me, and what could look like for the business. And now kind of freeing myself up so I don't have to be the one always stressing out about different things in the business as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I've found that the human element is the most difficult element of all of your business. No matter
Hmm.
what industry you're in or what market, it's something that you have to understand and paint the path for these people, right?
Yeah,
If they're going to be with you or somewhere else, like what is it that drives them? Is it
exactly.
money? Is it a title for a name, for the role? What is it that drives them? And
Hmm.
once you start understanding that aspect of people, then it's easier to manage. But also, I'm sure you figured out that it's your processes and procedures that
Hmm.
you're putting in place that are repeatable and built for scale. And once you
Yeah.
have those in place, it's easier to manage larger groups.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, what layers did you have to reveal to become who you are now? You said you dealt with some anxiety issues, some things like that. You don't appear to have those today, at least right now at this moment. So what did you do? How did you remove these layers to get here?
A lot of it, the biggest part, the biggest chunk of it was learning that I was a chronic people pleaser. That was the biggest part. Which, of course, when you're trying to run a business, it's really hard to be a people pleaser, when you have to take care of like everything else. That was the biggest part. Was like growing up. In here in the Philippines, at the very least, when you're the eldest, you're kind of your mom's right hand. So that means you had to make sure that your mom was happy, so everyone else was happy. And it was that unlearning basically that the identity that I brought within myself, like, oh, I'm the peacekeeper to make sure everything is fine and to make sure that no one is angry, that I had to unlearn. And the other thing was like, of course, like going to therapy. Like, I'm actually, it's funny. The other day I just booked. I haven't been to therapy in a year, but like the other day I was like, maybe I should like get like a little check in with my therapist. So I just actually scheduled for one next week.
Yeah.
But it has been that of like learning a lot of these coping mechanisms, a lot of the ways that I can reframe how I think. Part of it as well was I am a, dived into basically headfirst into self development, like anything and everything that I could swallow
Me
on
too.
self development. I did. Same thing with business. Like right now, I'm
Yeah.
reading. I have always have it. I'm currently reading the Greatest Salesman in the World.
Awesome.
I have like. The other day I counted how many books I had. I had like 500 books, not including the one on my Kindle, because I have both. And that was kind of the different ways that I was trying to structure who the person that I wanted to become looked like who that person was, and then acting as if I was already that person. So it was a lot of trying and failing and seeing who Leanne was outside of being that people pleasing side, and what actually made sense for me to become who I wanted to be.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, it's so much more important than we understand at the time, but it's who we become through this crazy
Mm-hmm.
journey of building business. And it's like the people that they may be like they may be the best salesman in their company, or they may be the best project manager. And then they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to go start a company.
Mm-hmm.
If they have not done that inside, that personal development, like I would almost say, hey, take a pause on that, work on yourself
Yeah.
first, because you take on a whole new business and that development plus your personal development, man, it is a storm to
Mm-hmm.
behold. So,
Yeah.
but it sounds like you're doing well. You're on the right path. You're getting your business built the right way, and then you're continuing learning. So that's awesome. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, what is the next layer for you to remove?
So it's funny because like now I'm 28 and I've been thinking of like, oh, I'm gonna turn 30 in 2 years, that kind of like existential crisis. um and I think the next layer for me to remove really is to get out of my own head. Like it's like I talked about, like the people pleasing and like the anxiety, depression, all of that. I'm still kind of getting out of that. I'm still learning um what it is to be fully present, and I think that's kind of the next layer for me. Like I think that's also what prompted me to schedule another session with my therapist. Is I still struggle with that from time to time. It's like I worry about like, oh, this client said this, like now we have to do this, and like, oh, I did this, now we have to take care of this. So it's always like me thinking past and future. So the next layer for me is to like learn how to be fully just here, how to be fully present for my dad, because sadly my mom passed away a few years ago now. So like being fully present when he's around, and being fully present when I'm around my sisters, or of course just being in my own space of just being here for myself as well. So that's kind of the next thing, because within my business, where the trajectory is, like this year I'm projecting that we're going to double or triple even from where we're from as of today, because we just had our admin meeting the other day, and everything looks really promising and exciting. But then I know that I have to learn how to shift with that and be present instead of always worrying about the past or the future. So that's kind of the next layer for me, is learning how to be just here, because I know people are taking care of me as well. It's not just me taking care of people.
Yes. Yeah, and that's going to take some planning, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens while you're not working, and you're working all the time. So then you have to make some time to actually think about that planning of what that looks like. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think that everybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're still going to deal with these, kind of similar issues to what you're talking about now. And
Mm-hmm.
I listen to Mel Robbins.
Oh,
I
I
don't
love
know.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that might, that kind of triggered some of that when you were talking. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
she's really still dealing with that as well. And it's so, she
Mm-hmm.
gives some good little lessons out there. Um, so, with that being said, where do you ultimately want to go?
So the ultimate dream is to build an empire of businesses. So aside from 2XU, this year we're also building like an AI agency for consulting, basically for people who want to integrate AI to their business. I have plans to create like I have 10 things that I have in my head of like different
Yeah,
businesses that I want to do. But of course, like again, doing that, being present is very important for me at the moment as well. But that's kind of the ultimate goal is to have this an empire, very much Star Wars in my head, empire
yeah,
of like businesses and everything else. Like actually have it tattooed on my wrist of like becoming an empress. That's kind of
right.
the goal is to build as many businesses as I can. One to empower other people to do it, and at the same time also hire from the Philippines, basically, so then other people can have the remote work where they don't have to choose whether they have to go overseas or staying with their family. They can choose. They have the choice basically to make that life for themselves. So that's kind of the ultimate goal is building empires so then I could support like the next generation on what their lives could look like as well.
I like that. If you need a business partner down the road, you give me a shout because I like working
For
with
sure.
yeah, I like working with people that actually work. So
Mhm.
I've had my fair share of bad business partners, and that's just something I never aspire to be. So I don't understand that kind of mindset. But like you, I have a handful of businesses that I'm looking at as well. So very good. Um, when did you become passionate about your focus?
Um, as traumatizing it was that it was the
Yeah,
storm basically of me wanting to create a life outside of myself of like what that would look like and the other side of it is being able to see the world like I was able the first time I traveled outside of the Philippines I was 20 since that I've been addicted I've been like in it of like oh every single year I want to travel somewhere internationally because it gives me this insight of like oh this is how this life could be like oh that's how that life could be and being able to see how important it is for different cultures to do certain things like last year I was lucky enough to go to Thailand for the first time and that was the first time I went outside of my time zone because our time zone in Asia is pretty wide that was the first time I was like an hour out of the Philippines I'm like oh this is different this is weird but every time that I do that, I get passionate and driven to like, oh, okay, so this is the different way that we can do this in the business. This is a different way that I can add this to my life. So it's been that learning curve as well of seeing how other people live their life that kind of drive me every single time that I fly somewhere and get a stamp on my passport.
that's awesome. Yeah, I travel quite a bit as well, and I've always since I kind of moved around a lot growing up, I had to fit into completely different cultures in the USA. And so living up north,
Mm-hmm.
moving down south to Texas, and then the cultures in between those two are very different. So
Oh yeah,
just blending in and I'm actually married to my wife is from Central America, so
a
I've also
different
kind of
culture as well. Yeah.
exactly so just blending in no matter where I go or what kind of business I'm doing, just being able to relate to others and I've always loved studying cultures as well and religions
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much to be taught and learned from that. So
Oh yeah.
just keeping my eyes open and ears open to different things.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Exactly.
when you first started on this journey, what is something that's just more trying than you had ever expected?
It was definitely myself. That was kind of the short and cute part of it was the
Yeah,
uh like I I know I'm a one of my superpowers is learning almost anything. Like I
yeah, me
consume
too.
content I call it myself like a content monster. I consume
Yeah,
content so fast. I can build systems, I can build
yeah,
different things. But when it came to myself, that was kind of the biggest thing of like, okay, now what does this Leanne look like? Okay, let's learn more all about her. Um that's kind of the biggest thing is like every single stage that I've been on in my life, it's kind of been myself that's always stopping myself to get to that next part.
That's right.
And I think like you would relate to it, and a lot of other people would relate to it if they were vulnerable with themselves as well. It's like it is that. It's like you are your biggest bottleneck. Like it's not anyone else saying like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can. It's just
Yeah.
you then telling yourself that you can't do that. So like with everything else that I can do and I've been able to do as well in my life, I know that I've been my biggest bottleneck. It's just been I've been more trying than more than anyone would have ever expected. But I think that's again like for most people, that's the reality of it. It's like you are the most trying person in your life as well.
Yeah, I love that the open honesty there and grading yourself. Yeah, I feel like I've died several times through building business. It's like you just think, how am I going to survive this thing? And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, boom, something else happens. How am I going to survive that? And before you
That
know it,
way.
you're like, you know what? What you got? What else is left? There's nothing left.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You think
And
it's like, okay, what else?
yeah, and I think at that point, last year, I just said, I don't know why I'm so scared to be on camera. I feel like I'm a good person. I don't understand why I'm so afraid of this thing. So I said, you know what, the hell with it. I'm just going to do the podcast. And here we are. I
Mm-hmm.
think we're in 30, 40 episodes of this and been interviewed on, probably 30, 40 other shows. And it's just, it's like, I don't know why I was so afraid of that thing, and
Exactly.
public
Mm-hmm.
speaking, you know. Um, but they say it doesn't matter if you're in a recession or not if you're a public speaker, because you'll always be able to go hunt down and make your next deal or meal happen, I guess. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Exactly.
so I love that you have your YouTube channel and you're rocking it. So, how long have you been doing that?
Um, Basically as long as 2XC's been around. I think I started like 2019 early, and then I paused, like big pause, and then December of 2019 again. I started off with the more educational content. But it's the same thing with you. I'm a total introvert. Like
Yeah,
uh I like will hide and read books for like days and days on end. But if you shut, and especially if you shut, like I've spoken on stages with like 1,000 people or like 800
yeah,
people. Every single time afterwards, I just need my little Leanne time. I just need like
yes,
a little good book. You don't even need tea or coffee, just water, and I'll like survive
yes.
on that. But it did start that way of like I started with just answering questions my sisters had. So when I started my YouTube channel, I was 23. And my sisters were about 15 and 16. So around the time that I started working online, and they were like, um, what did you do? Like, how did you get started on this? And I every single question that they had, like, how do you make a resume? How do you make this? So then that's how I actually got started, was like my
Oh,
sisters
cool.
asking me questions, and I would make whole YouTube videos about them. And they would love it. They would consume it and share with their friends. And they're like, okay, so other people really want this content. And then of course I've evolved to also talking about entrepreneurship. I've also talked about like how to do remote businesses and all of that. It's evolved since, but it did start with that of my sisters asking me the most innocent questions, and then me like, yes, I know the answer to this one. Let me give you a video on it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was it hard for you to get on camera, or it was kind of natural, or?
Um, I have a blooper somewhere of when we first created 2XU as a course, where my business partner actually shoved me in front of the camera. I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Like, you be on the camera. I'll give you the script. I'll give you everything to say. He's like, no, no, no. You have to talk. I have that blooper somewhere in my files. And it started off with like having full scripts, and then now bullet points, and now I don't even look at anything, and I could just talk about anything for 30 minutes. So it has been an evolution, but it did start with
Yeah.
me being shoved into the camera first.
Yeah. 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 I did the same thing. I got invited to a few podcasts, and then I was like, it kind of knocked the dust off. And I was like, you know what? This ain't so bad. I was like,
Yeah.
I could do this stuff. So who were the greatest contributors to your character?
I always credit like a lot of it to I've had a lot of really amazing people in my life. I've been very, very lucky with that. But of course the first one is my mom. Like my mom was my biggest nemesis, but also my greatest friend. Like I said, she sadly passed in 2021. But before that, like I grew up with her. Like I grew up with her, like me being her right hand, her teaching me responsibility from a very early age. She was a serial entrepreneur herself. She would like dive into
Okay.
almost anything. Like a friend of hers would say, like, "Hey, you should try this," and she would try selling it. She would try doing it. She was also a public speaker. She was a writer. She did so many different things that has affected me to this day in my life, of like the things that I like to do and things that I like to focus on. Um, and when I dropped out of college, she was so angry. She was so mad that I was going to pursue a life that we didn't plan on, which was me becoming a lawyer. And for years and years, we fought. We went back and forth with it. And then around the time that she got her diagnosis for cancer, she told me, like, "Leanne, you fought against me. And if you could fight against me, you could fight against anyone in the world. You've succeeded." Like, that's always like my of course, when she passed, like that memory always comes back in my head of, like, she said, like, "I'm proud of you for fighting against me." And that's like, to this day, I always will carry that in anything and everything that I do. And of course, like, my dad has been an amazing man who was there for all of it and showed me basically what that love looks like. And of course, like, I always give credit to my business partner, Tom. He took a chance on this 18-year-old and who wanted to start learning about business and whatever. 10
Yeah.
years later, I'm still working with him. As I'm now 28, I moved here like June of 2014. So it's been almost 10 years since I met them. So it's been an amazing journey with him as well, like learning how to do business, how to do certain things, how to stop being a people pleaser, because he's definitely an opposite of a people pleaser. So just kind of learning
Yeah.
a lot of so basically, my boyfriend was the one who summed it up really nicely. If I grew up Filipino for my teenage years, but for my adult life, I've been basically with an American who taught me business and life. So it's been those three people, of course, in my life that have kind of influenced me the most.
Oh, that's great. I love hearing that. Um, so if you could interview three people, who would it be?
Oh, um, first one, like I have so many people that like look up to. You mentioned Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins, I've been listening to her podcast actually, because I've been doing 6K runs in the morning. I've been listening
Yeah.
to her podcast a lot. She would be one of the people on top of my list.
Cool.
So it would be Mel Robbins. It would be Brene Brown, because I freaking love her as well. Um, and a good third person will also be Gary Vaynerchuk. Just mostly because, like, when
Okay.
I was starting out on this path of learning business and like how to get out of my own head, he was the content I listened to incessantly also. So if I had to pick three people, it would be those three.
Okay. You can name some more if you want. I was just saying three, but if you've got some more that come to mind real quick.
Um, like I said, since I read so many books and consume a lot
Yeah.
of content, those three have been kind of like the top ones in mind because of just recent. Of course, there's Simon Sinek that I really want to talk
Yeah.
to. There's oh my god, why is okay, Alex Ramosi. It was like in my head, I was
Yeah.
like him and his wife. I want to talk to
Yeah.
both of them
Yeah.
as well. Because I'm reading I have this book, the 100 Million Leads right now. I'm reading it. So there are a lot of basically the authors of the books that are my favorite are the ones that I want to talk to. Yeah, that would be really cool to talk to them.
Very good. Yeah, we're kind of on a similar path as far as consuming consuming their content, I guess. But
Yeah,
hey, it's we got to look for the best out there. I mean, we don't have much time, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, what practices or techniques make your day a success?
Taking breaks. um
Okay.
that's one that I learned really the hard way, because I used to work, of course, entrepreneur, 16, 20 hours. If the client wants to do one client in EST wants to do a 7 a.m. call, and one client from the UK wants to do an 8 p.m. call, I'm there. I'm doing it. So I've learned how to incorporate basically those breaks in between. So on my calendar, I have like blocked out times to eat, because I used to forget to eat.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I've blocked out times to go for a walk, or of course doing like my workout routine. So it's more of making sure I schedule in life
Yeah.
basically into my work, and not just my work into my life. So scheduling time to read, scheduling time to like take a break and like even go on vacation, or traveling basically. So that's kind of the biggest ones for me. It's just scheduling it and putting it in my actual calendar instead of my calendar running me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but you mentioned missing meals. So do you believe that like fasting maybe helps you perform higher?
Um, I've kind of I've been doing intermittent fasting for 7 years now, I think, and
Yeah,
I incorporate one meal a day in there once in a while. Um, of course, like as a woman, as a girl with like girl parts, the biggest thing that I've learned is like when I'm in different parts of my cycle, I can't do like hard intermittent fasting, or else I lose a lot of my brain cells.
yeah,
So it really depends on the person and like your body as well. Like I know people in my life who've been just doing intermittent fasting forever, and it works for them. And some of them, some people get migraines and like
yeah.
whole list of other issues coming up because they started intermittent fasting. So it really depends. Like right now, I'm fasting for I think 17 hours right now,
Okay,
since my last meal yesterday.
good.
But I'm feeling great and feeling good.
Yeah,
Probably not eating for another 4 hours. So I'll probably do like 20-hour fast today.
yeah,
But some days, like tomorrow, I'm gonna do a 12K marathon run. I'm not going to be fasting no more.
yeah,
After I do that run, I'm going to eat.
yeah.
I'm going to eat tonight, even before that run. So it really depends on the life that you also want to lead. It's just also your hormones and like getting checked with a doctor and all of that.
Sure, sure. Now, do you drink teas throughout your day or do you drink coffee? I'm not a coffee drinker, but I do drink tea.
Tea, English breakfast all the way.
Okay. Yeah, I've found some different kind of teas that have like moringa and
Mm-hmm.
ashwagandha in them, and like so I'm using those to help kind of mellow out throughout the day. Now, do you do breathing exercises? Have you
Mm-hmm.
done any of these?
I have different ones depending on like what I need. If I know I need to focus, I do the box meditation of like breathing in for 8, hold for 8,
Yeah.
out for 8, and then hold again.
Okay.
That's my favorite one to like kind of
Yeah.
calm my brain when I'm moving, when I feel myself moving too fast, basically. And also just counting my breaths. Like that's like any time that I just need that instant calm that I can't concentrate enough to do the box meditation. I just do the counting of breaths.
Very good. Very good. Is there any other techniques like that that come to mind?
Um, I have a lot of I basically, and even at one point when I was still learning them, I used to have a six-sided die that I would just roll and I would just do whatever that list told me to. So there's that. Of course, there's just the brain dump. So I do that from time to time where everything is louder than everything else. I just brain dump basically, and then do the getting things done method to like clean that up and actually make that into a file. Um, there's just taking a walk as well. Just like so
Yeah.
many times in my when I'm in my own head, I just go for a walk. Like, oh, life is bigger than my room.
Yeah.
There's life
Right.
outside of my room.
Yeah.
That helps a lot, and of course, just naps. I just take naps when I do need it, and like if I have a like at 9 p.m. meeting, I will take like a 5 to 6 o'clock nap. So then I could be up for that 9 o'clock meeting. So there's different things like that, like incorporated life into my life.
Yeah, I remember when I was building a few years back, I was like, okay, whenever I'm awake, I'm working, and whenever I'm tired, I'm going to take a nap or I'm going to go
A
to
little
sleep,
nap. Hmm.
And but it's just like setting up your mind, like this is what's happening, this is what we're doing,
Yep.
you know. What is the best piece of advice for an audience that truly wants to better themselves or others in this life?
You don't have to do it yourself. It's kind
Yeah,
of the because when you're entrepreneur, especially when you're solopreneur, like I started my business with my business partner, but I still kept thinking of myself like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Um, that's kind of the biggest thing that I keep having to learn as well, like that cycle in the message in my head of like, you don't have to do it on your own. Is when it comes to life, when it comes to business especially, other people are there too. Like they can be passionate about the same things that you're passionate about. They can be your accountability partners. They can be the people who can drive you to where you want to be, not just like you kind of burrowing into yourself, which is what I usually tend to do. It's partly why I build also 2XU, because 2XU was built for solopreneurs who have been just kind of grinding themselves to burn out and not really hiring someone else. It's like, no, this is how we can get a second brain. It's the same way of like how I have my YouTube channel. Like, if you don't want to work with us with 2XU, that's fine. This is how you can do it on your own. So it's still that knowing that you can learn from stories from people. We've said so many amazing names on this podcast already of like people to follow. You can learn from their stories, so you don't have to make their mistakes. You can learn from experience for sure, but you can also learn from experience from others. So that's kind of the biggest thing, is just like you can't do it on your own, or you don't have to. Because life offers you so many people that you can surround yourself with. It's just up to you to being open enough to be surrounded by them.
Exactly. That's kind of what the show is about, is gathering all these insights and sharing them. So that way, you don't have to go through all the troubles. You can hear what these people have done and hey, maybe you don't need to start a business now. Maybe you need to wait a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ever write a book or another book, what will it be about?
So right now I'm like in the last 2 chapters of the book that I'm writing on how to basically, it's called Scale You, how to basically scale yourself by like creating documentation and how to hire basically a virtual assistant with that. So right now that's what I'm working on. The next one I'm building, just because I can get really nerdy about it, is building your operating systems for your business. That's the next one. But if I could write any other book, I would write probably a fantasy romance book. If I could write, because I used to write fiction a lot. I published like my own books when I was 18 years old. I wrote a lot of fiction, and I was like, I miss kind of having voices in my head a little bit. So right now I'm writing those too. But then if I could write any book, I would probably write a fantasy romance about how the hero saves the day kind of trope. So that'll be my dream thing to do after those 2 books, probably.
That's so awesome. Yeah, as you're building business, it's like you go into such a logical mind, and it's just business. It's like hard to go back and even think about, writing a romance novel or something, something like that. I understand. Do you have a networking event or a book, product, invention, service that the audience can help promote? And how would they get in contact with you?
So first biggest one is my business 2XU. So it's the executive assistant service where we hire, manage, and train executive assistants who are now AI empowered with everything else, with business operating systems. So that's my main business. For the others, of course, we have my YouTube channel, which has like a treasure trove of so many things. I sometimes can't believe are coming out of my mouth. Like, oh, I know that. And of course, my upcoming book, Scale You, hopefully coming out this year as well.
Oh, that's great. And where would you say is the best spot to connect with you? Just going to the website itself?
So for 2XU, the best is on the website, we have a scorecard basically. So 2XU.com/scorecard, that'll take people through the path and journey of like, oh, do you need an assistant now? Do you need an assistant tomorrow? Or maybe just hold on your business for now. And for everything else, my LinkedIn is the best. My assistant is amazing at managing my LinkedIn. So probably LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Perfect. And that concludes this episode. I had a great time spending this time with you, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, I did for sure. A lot of insights between the two of us. So thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I'm sure we could talk for a very long time, but we got to end the show sometime. Maybe we can do it another time. But thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for this.
All right. Let's see.
After 40 people production.